moving slightly away from writing now and the forms and the genres that we've explored, I wanted to talk a little bit about Writer Beware, which is something I know you're a part of and you help lead. Um, I've experienced Writer Beware online because I'm an indie author trying to stay safe of scams, and there are so many. But for those who haven't seen Writer Beware before, what is Writer Beware?
Okay. In a nutshell, Writer Beware is the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association's anti scam committee. It was originally started with by A.C. Crispin and Victoria Strauss, working with a number of other authors and such to try and I help other authors identify, and I had to say it this way to keep our lawyers happy, less than helpful people out there who are trying to separate authors from their money and return little to no value. Um, because not everybody out there that we do beware about is a scammer. And because some people are just well intentioned and have no idea what they're doing.
Hmm.
Small press, there's, it's not so much anymore, but, over the years, we've had a number of small presses come and go. And what typically happens or used to happen, it's kind of, we don't see it as much now that independent authors have become more prominent, that people would try to get published, couldn't get published. So they decided it was obviously big, big publishing, just trying to stick it to the small guy. So I'm going to start my own press and help other people get published without a clue what they were doing. So they would bring in a few people, they would publish their books, they would start doing well, then they would start bringing in more authors and more authors. And now all of a sudden, now they're trying to juggle a whole bunch of stuff. Plus, they're not getting their own writing done anymore. And then something happens, like, oh, I don't know, the car breaks down,
Hmm.
and the family doesn't have enough money to cover it. But I've got this money over here in this company. I'll just transfer some money over, and I'll make sure to put the money back. Except the money doesn't come back. And then all of a sudden they start taking this person's royalties to pay that person. And things just kind of get into what we call a death spiral where, they get behind, they're embarrassed. They don't want to admit that there's a problem, and the communication breaks down. And then the next thing you know, the the authors now are starting to talk to each other and emailing back and forth, and everybody's complaining, and everybody's shooting nasty emails to the publisher wanting to know, hey, where's my money? What's up with my book? When's it getting published? Yada yada yada. And then the publisher decides, screw it, I don't need to do this anymore. And they quit. They shut down the company. Some have gone so far as to change their email, change their phone number.
Hmm.
So you could, and literally they go, radio silent. Well, what happens now is if that publisher, and a lot of them wrote really bad contracts because they didn't know what they were doing. Again,
Yeah.
they were pretty much amateurs. They never revert the stories back to the authors. So that means that the author can't just go out and publish their own story because they don't own the rights to it. No other publisher is going to pick up this story because you don't own the rights to your story. Somebody else does. Because say decided not to tell a publisher that somebody else that you had sold the story to another press and got it reverted, or like had something in the contract that said like, okay, if you haven't sold any books in 3 years, I get my rights back. Then that publisher takes your story and it gets picked up by Netflix for their next thing. And everybody's moving forward, and people are talking six-figure deals and yada yada yada. And then all of a sudden the original publisher shows up and goes, that's my story, I get my piece of the pie.
Hmm.
So sure, I mean, if it's a good enough story and Netflix is big enough, they'll probably just pay that publisher a certain amount of money to shut up and go away, and and let's do, give me the rights. But a lot of publishers don't even want to take that chance because it's just a headache waiting to happen. So if you can't prove that your book is free and clear, they won't even consider talking to you about it, uh, and for their own protection. So again, this wasn't somebody who set out to be a scammer, but in the end, it was the same effect. You've wasted time, you've wasted money, and you may or may not have your rights for that story anymore, and nobody's happy.
Yeah, they're not all malicious, but they still cause a lot of trouble for people. They still piss off a lot of people because, you know, I was at an event and I spoke to someone who came up and said that he'd be interested in doing book events as well, but he couldn't because he couldn't get the copies of his book because he had printed them with a press that was now out of business. So they had all these new copies in the plastic wrap in boxes in their warehouse that he didn't have the rights to, so he couldn't get them. They were never going to do anything with because the company doesn't exist anymore. You
Hmm.
can't sell them. It's just stuck in limbo forever.
Yeah, and that is and that's one of the problems. Now, are there people out there actively trying to separate you from your money? Yes, yes, there are. And if you're an indie author, all you got to do is look in your email box, and that all you got to do is say, put up your cover art, and you'll have 14 people writing you about, oh, and I also do artwork, and of those, 13 of them are probably AI bots. Uh, and the other person may or may not actually be an artist, or made, or I don't know how many offers I get. Oh, recently I got an offer to go to the Bologna Children's Book Festival, which is nice, except I don't write children's books. So what book of mine are you planning on displaying there for a price?
Hmm.
Or I get offers from book clubs. Recently, I got an invitation to be featured at a romantasy. Like, remember, I don't write romance. A romantasy book club wanted to feature my book. Now, never they didn't say which book.
They never do.
And I've gotten actually one that said, something something we would like to talk about, and then literally was
Insert book
bracket
here.
insert book name here, close bracket. So their mail merger just failed.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like going, yeah, you didn't even try. I mean, come on.
They do the, what annoys me is how many scammers for indie authors do the bare minimum. They don't do any research, so they don't know what genre you write. They don't bother to put your name or your book name. Some of them, I get them calling me by username on Twitter. Well, that's not my name. You've just ripped that straight from my social media and sent it. Come on, if you're going to try and get people to pay you, make an effort.